Today's topic of conversation is expired film. Photos taken with expired film demonstrate notable features characterized by strong grain, low contrast, and often aggressive color shifts. And the extent to which these characteristics will be noticed depends on how long the film has been expired for and the conditions under which the film was stored. Photographic film is generally okay for 2 or 3 years past expiry. That's assuming that it's not been stored in a fridge or a freezer. Eventually, however, the chemicals will gradually begin to degrade. The film will become less sharp, display more grain, and lose contrast. Sometimes the color shifts will be extreme and sometimes they'll be gradual. The examples that I'm sharing in this video feature very strong color shifts and low contrast. So far, as far as I can tell, we are assessing a textbook example of expired film degradation. The chemical composition on this film at the time of exposures has resulted in images that are faded and are cast with orange over my blues. So, my opinion is that anything that was blue stayed blue or came out a sort of blue, and then everything else was orange, orangey red. Not ready orange, orange. I've read that typical cast colors include red and green, and this is dependent on the film stock and the chemical composition and the degradation thereafter. General composition of film is made of silver halide crystals, which are suspended in gelatin. The silver halide crystals are present as either silver bromide or silver bromochloroiodide, or a combination of silver bromide chloride and iodide. You also get specialized film which contains a remjet layer as well, but I think most film is now produced with that remjet layer removed, making it less expensive because you can bypass the step of having to remove the remjet layer. The remjet layer is a black layer coating on the back of the film roll. Its purpose is to protect cine film from static electricity from within the camera. It protects from dust. It also controls the halation of your highlights. I guess it takes away that halation effect that you get in your highlights in your film photos. Another example of film that still includes the remjet layer is silver salts. They're located in Germany. I have been shooting with silver salts film. I have not yet had that developed, so that'll be a different video. And the more elaborate details of remjet and crystal, halide, silver crystals falls beyond the scope of this video It doesn't actually fall out the scope of this video, but I'm not going to touch on those heavy details. I'm going to discuss my roller film. But needless to say, all of the chemicals that I've just mentioned, they degrade over time as your film ages. Also, if you leave your film in a hot environment, it'll speed that degradation process. So try not to leave your film in a hot car or a hot environment, and if you can, keep your film in a fridge or a freezer in airtight containers. Once the chemicals in your film start to break down, the film starts becoming less sensitive to light, and the generally accepted workaround is to add a stop of light for every decade that your film is past the expiry date on the box. If I remember correctly, my film was expired in 2007. Yes, it was 2007. Kodak VR plus 200. Don't know anything about this film except that they don't make it anymore. And with a box speed of 200, I rated my film at ISO 80. I went a little easy with adding light because the seller had informed me that they'd kept this box of film in a closet in their house. So it wasn't kept in a garage, so there weren't huge surges of heat from having been stored in a garage. So I thought ISO 80 was an appropriate speed to rate the film for. Exposure-wise, I'm happy with that decision. I don't think that adding more light would have remedied my situation with regard to the film quality, and I think I will rate my next roll at 80 as well because I bought 2 boxes of that film, but I will shoot them with an intention to convert them to black and white right off the bat. As you can tell by some of the images I've shared so far, I converted these images to black and white, though I found beauty in one image, particularly in its color version. The results in black and white are less distracting and more pleasing to me, generally speaking. So let's go through some of them. We have a combination of mundane photos from my home in Cape Town, some gorgeous portraits of Julia, and some photos from our beach walk in Azefontein along the west coast of the Western Cape in South Africa. Let's start with my favorite photo, the one I just mentioned, a beautiful portrait of Julia. This is the color version. So when I first scanned this, I thought that perhaps I'd set my white balance wrong when scanning with my mirrorless camera, but I did it again and the result was pretty similar. So this is just a result of expired film. And as I mentioned though, I love the color version of this photo. I think a black and white one is also beautiful, which had me decide to go with black and white for all of these. This is a beautiful one, beautiful lighting conditions. As I mentioned, I'm happy with rating this box of film at ISO 80 because as you can see, adding more light I don't think would have made more of a difference to the quality of the photos. The film is what the film was. This is a beach in Fontaine. As you can see, heavy grain. Details are pretty much lost. Let's go in there. Yep. Nikon F2 by the way. This is shot with my Nikon F2 with the Nikkor 50mm f 1.2? 1.4? I think it's a 1.4. And I've shot with this camera before, so I know it's capable of decent photos. I know that the lens is capable of decent focus, pin sharp. So this is the film. Julia on the beach again. It is a beautiful dreamy quality that you get from these photos, especially with a lot of light there. So you can get this beautiful whiteness around the subject where the subject is more appropriately exposed. Quite dreamy. Lots of grain again. Me kicking some sand. Photo of me captured by Julia. Julia's shadow over here. As you can see, there was some wind. Yeah, the grain, I'm pretty happy with these photos, even though quality-wise they're not great, but the grain and the lack of contrast and the dullness of these photos actually makes for a beautiful characteristic in the photos. Look, you can see some dust as well here, which I probably just didn't blow the film properly. I love this one. This might be actually more of a favorite than the previous one I said is a favorite. Love this one. And I think the same will go for all of these photos. The grain adds to it. I think the exposure was the right exposure to choose. This will probably be my thumbnail. As you can see, this is supposed to be a blue sky, blue-ish water, so things that are supposed to be blue are blue, and then everything else is orange. And the black and white version of this. In some sort of dramatical way, I kind of prefer this one here. The color version, the damaged version. This over here is a kite. Let's get in there. Dull, bad, no sharpness, but that's a bird of prey, a kite, and it's sitting on top a headless rat. That is a headless rat, and I was so excited to get this shot because the kite was letting me get quite close. This is a 50mm lens, and I would take a photo, get closer, and take a photo and get closer. But unfortunately, the details are complete. You know what? It's probably fortunate that the details are lots. It's quite a disastrous photo. This is the rat, and there's like insides and, you know, red stuff, and it would have been quite dramatic. And then I even got closer, but after this photo I tried one more time and the kite flew away with the rat. I'm a bit bummed that I didn't get this shot, but it is what it is. That's what happens when you buy expired film. Same beach in Fontaine, which also has ostriches. After I took, not this photo, but this photo over here, the ostriches had spotted me. They'd come around here, and as I came around the other side of the bush to take another photo of them, they were running up that hill to intimidate me or to trample me or something. And the place that we were staying at was just across the road there, so I bolted for our Airbnb. I don't want to sound all dramatic and all, but I ran for my life. Another one I decided to keep as its color version, just for the purposes of this video. I might post it as well. The color contrast is quite decent, so it makes for a cool photo in of itself, but I feel overall the black and white photos for all of these are just more appropriate. That's me, taken by my friend Jonathan Lloyd. The rest are personal photographs. I said I was going to share mundane photos too. This is our home. I already cropped this one to be a 4x3. It's usually 3x2, as you know. But yeah, this is a view of our our home in Cape Town, and another mundane photo of, you know, everyday life, sports bras hanging around, and God knows what else that's on the table, sunblock, National Geographic, and a peaceful portrait of Julia while we were doing some garden work. And the color version of that. Right, so I hope that this video had some information that some of you might find helpful. Maybe you've learned something. For those of you that haven't experimented with expired film, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it with enthusiasm, but if you come across some expired film that's very cheap, don't be afraid to give it a try. Don't expect amazing results. The results might even be even worse than this one. Check this one out here. Very dull, but for me it holds a memory. You know, the more that I think about it, shooting on film that you know is potentially compromised in terms of the image quality could encourage you to think more in terms of your image composition, your subject positioning, especially relevant to the light and its surroundings. So it could encourage you to think more about the narrative or storytelling element of your photo. Not that your photos need to always have a story, but it could encourage you to think more in that way. Subject positioning, stuff like that. So shooting expired film could have that additional benefit to it. But with all that said, I hope that this video was somewhat short. Just, how do I put this? I do like the photos. I don't love them, but also I do love them. And that's about that for this video. I hope it's not as long as I think it might be. Just sharing some photos with you. There's a plane in the background now. I hope it's not too loud. I'm sure it will be actually. If you hear it, apologies. But I think we're going to leave it at that, folks. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to keep taking photos, keep making videos, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers. If you're interested in some of my digital work, check out this video over here where I visited a wildlife sanctuary in Australia.